every time I hear Kelley talk, she does something ridiculous. Like, oh my god, I'm such an instigator. I've started 20 different instigations and no one's caught me. And she brags about how terribly bad she is at the game. I'm getting myself in the block every week because I'm so crazy. I make such wild moves. I am so over people like Kelley. These recruits who don't know what they're doing and make the game worse because of it. Let's talk about it. This is our comical reality. Hey guys, full disclosure, before you watch, I just want to make it clear. When I say recruit, I'm talking about non-fans and people who we know for a fact didn't watch the show but were recruited and brought on through because of Big Brother. These are people, so some of these people might have applied to the show because they were looking for a TV show to be on, or watched like an episode and thought, oh, this might be fun, I'll throw in an application, and then went through the process and weren't like actual fans of the show. Okay, on that note, enjoy. Hello everyone, and welcome to day 19 of the BB27 Companion. I cannot believe we are on day 19. Can you believe that? No, I cannot. And we've got a long way to go. And some of why it feels like there's such a long way to go is because this game has been moving slow as molasses. And I've been trying to figure out a bit why. Obviously, the indecision is a part of it. Indecision does not make for incredibly fast gameplay. But you also look at the fact there's not a lot of alliance structure. Alliances haven't really meant anything. Pairings keep breaking up and coming together. And that's been a mess. And one of the things I realize is that the core of the opening of this week are a bunch of players who don't know what they're doing because they're recruits. So I want to look and talk through whether recruits should be playing Big Brother. Because the more and more I watch the seasons like this, the more and more I feel like recruits are almost always are almost always good as an exception rather than a decent chance. Recruits are on average bad. And look, Lauren's a fan, but I want to talk about it. Because I don't know if this is a casting direction that Big Brother should be going. And I think it's been 19 days. I think now we have enough evidence to talk through it, right? So this season has a couple of non-fans. We have Keanu, Kelley, Will, Amy, Kat, Rylie, Zach. And that's a pretty sizable number, right? You have someone like Rachel in the house who's obviously not a fan. Morgan's a fan, Mickey's a fan, Will's a fan, and Amy's a fan, but like, I don't think they care enough about being in this house. If that makes sense. Like, it just like being here and trying to make it to jury or whatever means nothing to them. So I can put them in the pseudo fan. Adrian, I'm not like convinced as a fan of the strategic side of the game at all. He really just seems like a comp person. Like, you watch the comps and like, ooh, I want to do those comps. And his game is so passive that it drives me crazy. So, as far as I'm concerned, in my head, there's only really a couple fans. I'm not even certain Jimmy's a fan the same way. Like, I'm very confused by Jimmy's fandom. But I would say at this point, there's only a couple fans. Mickey, Morgan, Vince, Lauren, Rachel, and then sort of a second sort of tier, you have people like Jimmy, and then Will and Amy, right? And when you look at who's gone home already, too, Zay was also not a fan. Zay used ChatGPT to get advice because he didn't know what he was doing. And you look at the list of people who have said are not fans, and a lot of them are huge misses. This early game has basically all been these non-fans or like loose fans on the block, right? Adrienne, I think, is at least a fan in a specific hardcore way, right? So you have Kelley, who doesn't know what she's doing, has not really watched the season. She watched Tucker and loves Tucker. And that's all she really knows about the show. So her big brother is playing like Tucker, which, as a fan, that's not how Big Brother is supposed to work. Tucker was entertaining because he was a mess who made these bold moves that were terrible but entertaining, and then would deliver just enough to like justify it, right? But if Tucker wasn't winning and he was on the block going home, like, it would obviously be like, oh, Tucker made such a dumb move. Because he was able to make these bold moves and survive, it becomes entertaining, right? But so Kelley only watches Tucker. Keanu has said that he's only watched highlight clips. You're like paridiums and of the world, where it's like great things about the legend of Rachel. Best to never play. Best fights in the Big Brother house. And that's not a great way to play. You have people like Rylie, who, what even are they doing here? Like, genuinely. You have non-fans like Kat, who the feeds refuse to show, who don't play the game, whose closest game ally is Jimmy, who she's fighting with and giving up on, and theoretically Lauren, who, like, she didn't even talk to. Like, there's just a lot of these non-fans in the house. And the problem with these non-fans is that they don't necessarily want to play. They're not, in their heads, have a sense of what this game has looked like at a high level. At a fast level. I don't think you need to be a live feeder to get that. I think obviously being a live feeder helps a lot. Live feeders tend to do pretty well. But what is true is you need to watch the show and care enough about the strategic side of the show, about the momentum and way in which relationships work in this house, to care about and know what's coming, what to expect, what might have happened, or you should expect to have happened, what you should be doing. And non-fans, I think, don't really know that. And so some of them stumble into the game great. But a lot of the recruits of late who've been really good, Mackenzie, Derek X, both of those in particular were coached up by other players. And Tucker very much did not play the game well and would complain about being bored when there was no comps. And he did not play well. He was entertaining, rallied gold, but, he wasn't exactly playing well. And Derek X was really helped by Tiffany. Derek X was doing terrible that first week. And Tiffany said, I think you have a lot of potential, and pulled Derek X in and made Derek X a really strong ally of hers, right? And a really capable player in the game. Same is very much true with Mackenzie, right? Chelsea very much trains and works on Mackenzie, who has kind of just gotten lucky and survived in the house, and Chelsea really sees an opportunity to pick her up and really solidifies Mackenzie as her number one sort of ally. And Mackenzie becomes very successful, in part because she has a player like Chelsea to help her out, right? Recruits often really need support, and here's the thing. There's a lot of examples of just bad non-recruits. On a season like 23, which is almost all of fans of the show, your recruits were, let's see how this goes. Travis. Didn't go well. I think Whitney might have been, but don't quote me on that. Alyssa was a fan of the show. And then Christian, who went out 5th, and then Derek X, who, of course, was a legend, icon, etc., right? On 24, you have a lot of recruits. Jasmine was a recruit. Paloma was a recruit. Alyssa was a potential recruit. That one's a little more confusing. You have Monty, I think, was a recruit. Joseph was definitely a recruit. And you just had a lot of Turner. I don't know what Turner was. I think Nicole was a recruit. Daniel wasn't, but there's a lot of recruits, and you think about the impact and the best players on 23. You have your fans. Taylor, who was recruited, but then said, with considerations for that show, but then went and studied. Chelsea was kind of the same boat. She said, hey, we think you might be good for the show. She said, okay, let me study up on it and learn. And then when Chelsea learned a lot about it and really knew what she was talking about, then she played the game, right? Of the fans, you had Michael, Brittany, Taylor, and then you had recruits like Kyle, right? And a lot of the fans there wasn't a lot of fans on 24 really drove the energy. On 25, your fans, Corey, America, Suri. Well, Suri wasn't a fan of Big Brother, but Suri was a fan of these kinds of shows. Izzy, Heisa might have, I think was, you had Felicia, you had Jag, and you had recruits like Matt, right? And these like fans do really well. The recruits like Rylie or Red often struggle. Blue struggle, right? And it's something that frustrates me a lot is you watch a lot of the recruits fail and the fans struggle or the fans succeed. And yet we ask ourselves every year, we should have a mix of recruits and people who've experienced. And like it's great for the people who are experienced in a sense because it makes their games a lot easier. But the energy of this week has been driven by non-fans messing around, non-fans being a mess. Keanu doing all sorts of things. Every time something he sends up in the right direction, he makes a completely wrong move because he doesn't know what he's doing. You have people like Zach who don't know how the vetoes work, so they're not going to be the people trying to push for Ashley. They know that Ashley's probably better, but they're not intuiting how important it is to push for Ashley to go. Then you have your fans, your Mickeys, Morgans, Rachels, really driving the energy in the vote, and Ashley's a fan, right? They're basically persuading Lauren, who's wishy-washy, have issues. And like, I think you can say, the counter argument is Lauren's boring. Vince has been boring. Well, Vince is actually pretty good at this game in theory. He just doesn't have the energy to push. But I think the problem for someone like Lauren is I actually think Lauren on a cast with like a bunch of like very talented fans around her would be doing great. You know, I think she's the kind of player who loves the game and her instincts are right. She just doesn't feel confident enough in her instincts, and she's not being surrounded by people who will support or help confirm that those instincts are right. Instead, she's surrounded by people who are going to be peddle that same energy because they themselves aren't that decisive. And I think there is a real concern every season when there's not a lot of fans that this is a trend. And I really don't want that. I'm not trying to say a definitive statement. If it were up to me, I think some of the best seasons of recent have been seasons with they're very fan heavy. 25 outside the comp period was very fun in its fan heavy elements. Like the fans really drove that season until, the comps kind of destroyed it. 23 is nearly all fans. And then you have Derek X who picks up the game and plays really well. And guess what? That season is full of lots of people fighting really hard to win. And the Cookout obviously dominates, but all 6 of those Cookout members were strong fans, right? They all 6 knew what they were doing. That is not possible in alliance with people who are recruits, who don't know what they're doing, who don't understand just how important something like the Cookout is. The Cookout succeeds because people knew how important it was, right? And that's because they were fans. I want to see more fans on these casts because I want to see people who are fighting. I don't need you to be a great player. But think about it this way. If there's a Venn diagram, you have people who are really good at playing and play really hard, people who are really good but don't play that hard, people who are really good but don't really play that hard. You have people who are really bad but play super hard, and then you have people who are bad and don't play hard. We're stuck with a lot of people in this category who are bad and don't play hard. I want a lot of people in this category. People who are bad but play really hard, and people who are good and play really hard. And those are going to be mostly fans. Some of your people who are good but don't play very hard are people like Zach, right? People who don't play hard are just boring. They keep the season boring. They mean that a lot of the momentum and energy is spent on people who aren't really playing. When you have to spend time getting out Keanu, time getting out Kelley, and then you look at your sort of middle core and you're like, somehow we have to get out Rylie. Somehow Kat has to go. And you say, where the hell is this going to occur? Because it's genuinely not something that's worth doing because they're non-factors. They're never going to play this game. So why should you care what they do? And that's a really frustrating thing because it will take you 3 episodes to get out someone like Rylie. Someone will have to say, I'm spending my HOH on Rylie, which is not a good situation to be. And it's okay to spend the first week or 2 taking out a couple of the worst players. But when you look out, and you've got at least 4 more weeks of bad players who would need to go, that is a real problem. And I think it's a lot of what's killing the season so far. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Have a good one, everybody. Take care. like and subscribe. I've been really, really, really thankful for all the support because let me tell you, this is a lot to commit to every week, every day. Oh my god, I'm so crazy for trying to do this every day. I don't know how Taryn does it, but I see the support, I see the views, I see the watch time, and I'm like, okay, this is worth it. So I really appreciate you guys for what you guys are doing. It's so fun to talk about this, and I find it really helps to talk here instead of to people, friends of mine who don't care about Big Brother. Because let's all face it, when you want to talk about Big Brother, it's not exactly a lot of people who care to listen. So thank you guys so much. Bye.